Jaccob Slavin, welcome back to Sports Spectrum. It's good to see you in person.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah,
Happy
man.
to be here.
This is going to be fun. We're going to be able to talk a lot about the Lord, certainly, and a lot about what God's doing in your life. First, I got to ask you about how you're feeling because you just signed a really cool long-term deal to stay with Carolina, and that just has to feel great, not just to sign a deal like that for you and security for your family, but also to have a team that you've played with since the very beginning say, we want to have you with our club for a long period of time.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's exciting. My wife and I are extremely happy, grateful, thankful for the Lord and His faithfulness, obviously. And Carolina's our home, and so it's great to be there and to be there for hopefully my whole career. And I don't have to worry about contract stuff anymore because that's it's not very fun. But the whole process was great, and it's just exciting to be there forever.
That fan base, Raleigh, North Carolina. Describe it a little bit.
Passionate. They are loud, and sometimes they yell the whole game. So it doesn't matter what's going on. But no, it's been great. When I first got to Carolina, they wasn't a packed building. We had 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 fans, right? And it's a stadium that can hold almost 19,000. And so first 3-4 years, if you went there on a Tuesday night against Arizona, didn't feel like an NHL game.
Totally.
But now, we sold out every game last year. It's amazing. Like, they're so fun, and honestly, it might be biased, but it's actually one of the loudest buildings I've ever played in. So it's so fun.
And craving for a cup, of course.
Yes,
that's
obviously
always the goal.
All I hear is, 2006. Like, anytime you meet a fan out in public, well, back in 2006, I was there or I was watching, and that's all they talk about. So they want another one.
Well, hopefully we get one pretty soon for you and for the Carolina Hurricanes. That'll be a lot of fun. Take me back to December 8th, 2015. That was the day you made your NHL debut. According to what I'm reading here, I'm sorry, that was the day you scored your first NHL goal.
There we go.
Against Dallas.
I think it was November 15th.
There you go. I figured you had that right. I have my stats right here.
I think so. It might be a day or two off.
It was November. I wrote December 8th, scored first goal against Dallas. So I got to hear the story. What was that experience like, scoring your first NHL goal?
It was fun. Obviously, it was fun. I didn't imagine it happening the way it did because I was honestly in the crease. And
Truth comes out.
As a defenseman, I don't go down there that often, but easy play goal. The puck just trickled through the goalie. It wasn't going in, so I didn't steal the goal from a teammate. But we were also down 5-0 at the time.
Okay.
So it wasn't like a full-on intense celebration type of goal. It was
it was like a couple of golf claps and a pat on the back, right?
Exactly. I was one hand on the crossbar, one stick in the air. It was just like, oh, okay, it's 5-1.
Yeah.
But no, actually, my roommate that I was rooming with that year too scored his first NHL goal that year or that game as well. And we came back and made it 5-5, but then ended up losing 6-5. So
that's good. That's a better story.
I got the ball rolling.
Yeah. Did you get the puck?
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, I got the puck. Team put a nice little plaque with me with the picture and everything like that. So it's somewhere in the house.
All right, go back a few more weeks, your debut. What do you remember about that first ever NHL game?
It's funny, actually. I didn't know it at the time, but James Reimer was in net for the Toronto Maple Leafs that game, and James eventually came to Carolina, and we became really, really good friends, and one of the closest friends I've met through hockey. But so I didn't know. Looking back, that's a funny aspect to it. But I thought it was awesome. We ended up losing 2-1 in a shootout, and I was obviously played my NHL debut. Unbelievable feeling. So excited. I get back after the game. We lost, and guys in the locker room were like, "Oh, sorry, man. That's kind of a boring one for your first one." I was like, yeah. But no, it was awesome. So it was so much fun. And my mom, dad, my billet family that I had in Chicago when I played juniors came out, and my strength coach at the time came out. So there was just a lot of people that came out to support, which was awesome.
All right. So that's 9 years ago. Who's the Jaccob Slavin 9 years ago compared to the Jaccob Slavin today? Not just the hockey player, but the man of God.
Yeah. I think as a hockey player, I was about 15 pounds lighter and a lot just young, right?
Raw.
Just raw. It was actually it was funny. After I signed the extension, the NHL had Instagrammed out a time lapse, not a time lapse, but year by year headshot of me.
Oh, good. Or not so good.
They haven't changed since year one. You can't tell what the difference is. Same beard length, same hair.
Wow. It's time to change it up a little bit, Jacob.
Maybe a little more wrinkles under the eyes, but my wife was giving me a hard time about that one.
That's funny.
It was. So I think as a hockey player, obviously just young in the league, understanding what it takes to be a pro, and then as the years have gone by, understanding even more that now I'm getting older, I can't have cookies and milk every single night, can't have dessert every single night. And so understanding that aspect of it, but also just taking care of my body physically. But then spiritually, I mean, I'm in a much different but better spot now than I was 9 years ago. I mean, being in Raleigh has been unbelievable for my wife and I. Neither of us had ever truly experienced community before we moved out to Raleigh. And so just being able to get in a church community, have a consistent small group, have people pouring into you, you pouring into people. So I've grown so much in my faith. I've seen people come to know the Lord. My wife has led people to the Lord. And then we both have gotten to disciple those people as well. So it's really exciting and it's fun. And so I would say we're in a much better spot 9 years to this day.
Well, let's stay there for a minute.
Yeah.
So community is always hard, I think, sometimes when we talk to athletes because you're so busy, right? Especially you're traveling, you're on the road, rooted in a local church, especially in the place that you actually play, is not very common for professional athletes, at least the ones I talk to, because a lot of them play in a city during the season and then go back home to a different city. Yeah. So being rooted in a community is often very difficult. But you're describing this as something that you've made Raleigh your home. Yep. And that's a place where you not only are rooted as a hockey player, but rooted in a community of believers, small group, as you described, church. What does that look like for you, let's say in and out of season? Yeah. Like, are you still able to be a part of a small group in Bible studies with your church community, not just teammates, during a season?
Yeah, so, well, I'll go back to after my rookie year. So my wife's from St. Louis area. I'm from Colorado. And we're like, who do we choose to go back to during the summertime? And then during that first season in the NHL is when we got so connected to that church community right away. So it's like we could choose a family to go back to, but we've also just already we've established ourselves here. And so even just after that first year of having that community and having what it feels like to have community, we're like, we don't want to lose that for the summertime. So we ended up making that decision after my rookie year to stay back and be in Raleigh the whole time. And so from that moment on, it was just like, we're staying here. But what it looks like in season and out of season is definitely a little bit tougher now that as about 2.5, 3 years ago, I have a guy that's actually mentors me now out in Raleigh that goes to our church. And so me and him will hop on Zoom calls throughout the year. So we get that one-on-one discipleship. And that's been awesome. And then during the summertime, I'm able to actually attend the Bible study he runs on Friday mornings. But then from a small group perspective with my wife, we meet every other Tuesday. If I can be there, I am. If not, she's still going or hosting typically. But we have 4 awesome families that are in that small group with us. 15 kids, I think, between the 5 families that are there, and so it's fun. But I mean, it's again, we're at a great church with great people who love Jesus, and so we also had to seek that community out in the church that we go to, and we found it, and so we're thankful to have it.
Take that into the locker room. Are you able to carry that into the locker room, have believers on the team that might be kind of like-minded like you and then be able to invite them to anything like that, or even just to have your own team Bible study with a chaplain or anything like that? What does that look like as a hockey player? Yeah,
so I'll start with the chaplaincy. Sid Graham is our chaplain here in North Carolina, and he's been awesome. He was a chapel ever since I came to the team. So this past year we had a great chapel. We had, I think, 4, 5, 6 guys coming every time, which was awesome. So from that aspect, it's great. From a personal aspect and guys on the team, a guy by Jalen Chatfield came to know the Lord 2 years ago, right before Christmas. We were pouring into him, and then one day after chapel, he stayed back with our chaplain and accepted Jesus. And then a month later, my wife led his wife to Christ, and so it was super exciting. She saw the change in him and how real it was, and she was like, "All right, Kylie, like, what happened to Jalen? I want this." And so she actually kind of sought my wife out and was just like, "Hey, teach me the Bible, like, let's do it." And they walked through, I think it was just Genesis, and she's like, "Okay, I'm in. Like, I'm in."
Just with Genesis.
Just with Genesis, exactly. And I'm sure my wife pointed to the gospel at some point in that, but she's like, "I'm in."
Yeah.
And so it's been really fun discipling them. But then actually this year, Jordan Stahl's on our team. He's a believer as well. And so we have actually, for being an NHL team, we have quite a few believers.
Yeah.
And then we got Spencer Martin on the team right before the trade deadline this year, and he was a young believer. And so him and Chatty were doing Bible studies almost every road trip together in the rooms and just walking through scripture together, and it was super fun. And so both of those guys are hungry and thirsty for the Lord, and then we got other guys on the team who are asking questions and always wondering like what we're doing and talking about it. And so it's really fun.
How do you navigate that, like with your teammates that aren't believers but still obviously be a great teammate? I mean, you win the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy, which is best sportsmanship, but that probably means you're a pretty good teammate to the rest of your team. But how are you navigating that, like loving those guys and being there for them, but also fulfilling the call of the Great Commission to help make disciples? I want to go back to that story about you and your wife, leading your teammate and his wife to Christ. But how do you kind of cultivate that within a locker room with guys who are coming from all different kinds of backgrounds?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just using Jesus as example of just going in and serving and loving them, right? Loving them where they're at. I mean, it's hard. It could be really easy to go in and judge them. But it's not my place to judge. And so I get to go in there a sinner, face to face with other sinners, and just love them. And some of them are really receptive to it and like to ask questions, and others could care less. But I mean, you always get the, like, when a guy will cuss in front of you, sorry man, I didn't mean to cuss. So you know they know something's there. So there's definitely really good conversations I've had. I mean, even at the end of last year, a guy was asking me tons of deep questions and just like, and he's like, well, what is my purpose in life if I'm not a hockey player? And so I get to share the gospel with him right there. And so it just depends from relationship to relationship. I mean, I have good relationships with all the guys on the team, and even the guys who really could care less about, or couldn't care less about Jesus. Still good relationships with them.
That's good.
It's really just loving them where they're at.
Is language something that you're very cognizant of as being part of your witness for Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely just how I grew up as well. I mean, my dad was kind of a stickler about not using bad words, and so it was just never my thing to cuss. But the Holy Spirit's definitely helped strengthen me in that regard as well, because if it wasn't for the Holy Spirit, I'm sure there'd be some words let out. But we had after one of the guys came to know the Lord, one of the guys on the team looked at both of us, was just like, hey, you cuss, you don't, but you're both Christians. Why is that?
Interesting.
So even got to like go through that and just explain through that. So it's been really good. But yeah, definitely try to use even language as a witness. And so,
well, I know from athletes, just talking to them and watching them it's an intense moment to be on the ice or on the field or on the court, and sometimes your emotions get the best of you, and you probably hear things that will never be repeated on Sports Spectrum, I would say, right?
Definitely not. No, guys always make fun of me though, because if I get mad and I come back to the bench or whatever, they I'm just like, gosh darn it type, and they're like,
Kirk Cousins said that once too,
exactly.
that he was that way.
Exactly.
Like, hey, this is who I am.
They laugh at me when that happens, but they're just like, come on, Slavo, say it once. I know you want to. I'm just like, I'm good. It's okay.
I love that. All right, tell the story again. Go back a little bit with your teammate and your wife leading, his wife to Christ. Like that's a pretty powerful moment.
Yeah.
I want to ask you just about being prepared for a moment like that. 1 Peter 3:15, I believe, talks about us being prepared to give a reason for the hope that's within us, right? Like, can you just walk through the process of what that experience was like for you, and then the conversations maybe you're having with your wife about the opportunity that might be coming with his wife?
Yeah, so it started at training camp that year. It was his first year with the Carolina Hurricanes. He had come from Vancouver, and he was going to chapels in Vancouver, so he had an interest, but he came to Carolina, and first day I met him, we were talking, and he had mentioned something about chapel. I was like, oh, do you go to church? He was like, yeah, sometimes. And so ended up coming to church with me that Sunday, and from there, we just started really meshing together well. And then as the season went on, it was just conversation after conversation of just he had questions, and just so many weird questions too that you wouldn't that's just how his brain works. So we've had some really good talks, but just kept sharing the gospel with him, kept trying to get him to focus on what the main thing of the gospel, right? You can have all these other little things that don't change what the gospel truly is. And so trying to get him just to focus on the gospel and let all these other extra things figure themselves out, because it doesn't change the fact that we're all sinners in need of Jesus, right? And so, then the one day after, and my wife knew about that, all through those conversations, she knew that he was interested, he was close, he was really close, and all these things. And then the day after he accepted Christ, obviously I told her, and she's so pumped. And one of the things my wife and I have always said is just if I go my whole career and never win a Stanley Cup, him coming to know the Lord
It was worth it.
Way worth it.
Yeah.
Like so much more fulfilling than what a Stanley Cup would bring, right?
Totally.
And so that's like we're so ecstatic about it. And then he comes to know the Lord, and obviously he's at home, and then his wife is talking to him, Kylie, and she's just like, what's going on with him? What's going on with Jalen? Like things that he used to like blow up about, he's not even getting mad anymore. And so it's like that spirit was evidently at work already in his life. And she's like, whatever he has, I want it. And then she was able to start talking with her, start going through Bible studies with her. And like I said, that first Bible study they had, it was like 3 hours long. And she was like, okay, how do I do this? Like,
how do I do this?
And so my wife walked her through the prayer and like, just like, it has to be from the heart. And
Was there a baptism moment too?
So it's really cool. So we got to baptize both of them. So we have a pool at our house.
Nice.
And we got to baptize both of them at our pool.
Oh,
and then
so cool.
we also had a roommate who lived with us for 2 years, who also last summer came to know the Lord, and we got to baptize. So hopefully there's a lot more baptisms in the Slavin pool at the end of the career.
I love that because, let's be honest, the NHL can have I don't want to say a bad reputation, but like it's not known for its outspoken followers of Jesus. There's a few that are there. I'm sure there's more than many of us even know. Maybe they just not want to put it out there or be public about it too often. But what is the state? How do you feel like now you're entering year 10?
Year 10, yeah.
Year 10 in the NHL. How are you feeling about kind of where the state of being able to live your faith out in a sport like hockey and where we're at?
For myself, it hasn't changed.
For you.
I think for myself, it hasn't really changed because I always, like even in college, I wanted to be bold, and the Spirit enabled me to be bold. Yeah. Being so young, I think it was from the team perspective, being so young and being outspoken. Some guys kind of were like, what's going on with this guy? Yeah. But then by year 2 and 3, like guys just expected it. They're like, okay, that's just how he is. That's who he is. So for myself, it hasn't changed too much. I think it is more accepted. Guys know more so. Like I'll even get chirped on the ice right now for stuff and being a Christian, but that's a good compliment. I take that as a compliment, right?
Yeah.
But there's not that many Christians in the NHL still. It's still such a minority group, and you might be lucky to have one on a team. I mean, in Carolina, I think we probably have the most. We're at 4.
Yeah.
And it's a couple guys interested, and so there's just not that many Christians around the NHL. But I think there are a lot of guys who grew up maybe Catholic and whatever, and
fell away or whatever.
Exactly, and not really practicing, and so a lot of guys know about Jesus but wouldn't call Jesus Lord.
But there's opportunity too. That's how I see it. I'm hoping you see it that way too.
100%.
Like, oh wait, well, the field is ripe here for opportunities to share the gospel.
We got a great mission field, and there's not a lot of people in the world who are Christians who can go and mission or minister to the top 0.1% of the world, right? And so it's a fun platform and a fun opportunity to be able to minister to these guys.
So this past season, 2024, you're the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy winner. I mentioned this earlier. It's kind of best sportsmanship. You won it in 2021 as well. What does it mean to receive that? Like, do you see that as a sort of a extension of your faith in the Lord and being able to be honored with an award like that?
Yeah, 100%. I think out of all the awards that I'd want to win, I feel like that's the one that means the most to me because you said it like that. Exemplifies what how I try to carry myself, how I try to live, and I do that by trying to represent Jesus the best that I can. And so an award like that, having good sportsmanship, being a gentleman, whatever, in a violent game, right?
Yeah.
It's I'm thankful that the Lord has given me the temperament that I have. I'm thankful that He's led me by His Spirit so much of my all of my walk, really. And so to win that award, it means a lot just because of that reason. Of it's just like, all right, that is. People might not know it, but what they're seeing is Jesus through me.
Totally. This is going to be a weird question.
Go for it.
What's the least gentlemanly moment you've had in the NHL? Because you're a guy that's known for that.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're not trying to like air our grievances here or air our bad moments, but I think transparency is important. There's probably moments you're not proud of. Yeah. Is there an example of a time that you can think of where, man, I did not represent Christ well here?
Yeah, I think what gets me is. And I have really good relationships with the referees and the linesmen for the most part. But there are some times where they just, it doesn't make sense to me, the call that they make or whatever it is. And
so,
not that I don't cuss them out or anything like that, but I definitely let them know sometimes that I'm frustrated with them.
Yeah.
And so, just telling can't remember what I said, but I remember after one game this year, I kind of yelled at a linesman. I was just like, "Well, you're not doing a very good job," or something like that. And
you said it in a gentlemanly way.
Well, for me, not.
I'm
not
very
so
unhappy
much.
for you with your job here.
You're not doing a good job.
Yes.
But after the game, I was like, like in my heart, I was like, that's not how I want to speak.
Did you ever have a moment where you could apologize?
No, I didn't have him the rest of the year because it happened towards the end of the season, and so I remember who it was, and so next year I'm sure he doesn't even remember it.
But I love that that's sticking in your brain. Like you want to go back and repent or apologize to the guy for what you said.
And I can't tell you how many times the refs have apologized to me, so I can apologize to them every once in a while.
That's good. I like that. All right, as we wind down, I want to ask you 2 more questions. The first is adoption, and that's your first child. I think 5 now, right?
Yeah, she's 5 now.
What is her name?
Emerson.
African-American little girl, right? I want to ask you about adopting a little African-American girl, and how adoption has changed the way that you see Jesus now that you have a 5-year-old who looks up to you and says, "Hey, Daddy, you're the best," or whatever.
Yeah. I think, well, to start, I mean, we were just being led by the Lord. We didn't know what we were going to get. We kind of just put our yes on the table, and like when you go through the adoption process, like they have a list of preferences, and all the only preference that we checked was like we want a baby 0 to 12 months. It's kind of like for our first one, we were like we should probably start young.
Yeah.
And so we were just like whatever ethnicity, whatever like if there's any disability, anything. Like we were just like, all right, God, whatever you have for us, that's what we want. And so Emerson's a joy, though. She is so much fun. She is so smart and spunky, if you will.
How old was she when you got her?
Infant. She was, my wife was in the hospital, and she got to see her about 3 hours after the birth.
Wow. So brand new baby.
Yeah, brand new baby. Exactly. And so it was a crazy story. We don't have to get into it too much, but pretty much I just played game 1 of the playoffs for the first time since the Canes made it back to the playoffs. And so I was in D.C. on a Thursday night. Emerson was born on a Friday. Game 2 was in D.C. on a Saturday. Oh. So it was a hectic little.
At least D.C. to Raleigh isn't too far away.
No, it's not too bad at all. And so it was a little crazy. But all that to say, adoption and how being a father to her is, I mean, it's unbelievable. You know the love that I have for Emerson, and it's just God loves us that much more. And then even from a discipline standpoint, it's just like we tell Emerson not to do things because we love her.
Right.
And like God gives us guidelines because he loves us, and he doesn't want us to be hurt, right? And so, but sometimes he allows it because we need to feel that experience and understand the discipline that he's given us. So there are just so many fatherly aspects now being a father that God has towards us. I'm like, okay, I get that now. Or even just the vulnerability that a daughter comes to her father with, right? And the need that she comes to me with is how I need Jesus, right?
Yes.
And even more so. So there's just so many things that relationship enhances how I view God.
And you also have a son. A couple of years ago, he was born. His name is
Charlie, and it's Charlie. And so he's fun. He's 2 years old now, and he is a joy. He loves hockey.
He loves hockey.
Loves hockey.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Hockey stick.
Hockey stick.
Hockey skate. Hockey rink. He'll just.
So these are his first few words, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah,
outside of mama and dad.
Right. Exactly. No, he loves hockey. He's obsessed with being a goalie, though.
Oh, interesting.
And so we'll see how that.
Well, that could be a nice little thing as he grows up. You could shoot him some slap shots.
Exactly.
See if he can make the stop.
Exactly. No, he's fun though. He's all boy.
That's awesome. I love that. All right, my last question for you is. It's about as simple a question I can ask. I'm curious your answer. Who is Jesus to Jaccob Slavin today?
I mean, he's everything, right? He's Lord of my life. He's Lord of all my life, because if he's not Lord of everything, he's not Lord at all. And so he's a gracious friend, and I live my life because of him and what he did for me. And so my purpose in life, my purpose in my marriage, my purpose as being a father, it's all to glorify him because he's worthy of that glory. And so, I would say he's my everything.
Everything. I like how you said that too. Like, if he's not Lord of all of my life, he's not Lord of any of my life. Can you just unpack really quick what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not completely surrendered then you can't be half surrendered to something, right? If you're either free or you're not free. And so if he's not Lord of everything, he's not Lord at all.
Yeah.
And so I hope that kind of clears it up. If you want me to go deeper, I can.
No, that's good. Yeah. You don't have to go deeper at all. That makes complete sense. Yeah. Jaccob Slavin, thank you for doing this. Thanks for coming back on the show. Hopefully you're hoisting Lord Stanley next year. Yeah. That would be nice. But either way, like you said, Lord of your life, Jesus, and love how outspoken you are about your faith. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blast. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.